A man secretly sold his wife's beauty salon for $12 million and spent all the money on his mistress's new business. The woman was on the verge of despair, but found the strength not to give up. She started all over again, rebuilding her business and life step by step. Meanwhile, her husband lost everything: money, his mistress, and respect. Her strength and determination helped her turn pain into victory, proving that even after betrayal, you can start over and win. She came to the salon in the morning, as always. Everything was in order, cosmetics were on their shelves, mirrors were shining, and the masters were already preparing their workplaces. For 6 years, she had invested not just her strength in this space, she had invested herself in it. Every chair, every towel, every lamp was chosen not for the image, but for convenience and comfort. This was not just a business, it was a reflection of her character, her path. Everything she had was concentrated in this salon. She was not helped with loans, she was not sponsored for the launch. She pulled everything herself. Negotiations, mistakes, fines, unsuccessful shots, sleepless nights, tired mornings. And then development, success, queues of clients, growth, profit. People began to envy her. They began to copy her. But she remained herself, because she knew everything that exists was created by her hands. She went outside for a few minutes to get some air. Her soul was unusually anxious, without explanation. Over the past month, she had noticed that her husband had become distant. He returned later, answered questions briefly, seemed to be physically present, but internally, somewhere far away. However, she did not ask questions. They had been together for 10 years, and she was used to not interfering in his affairs. He was engaged in investments, and all she knew was that he took risks, sometimes won, sometimes lost. This time he did something completely different. After a short break, she returned to her office and saw in her email a letter from a law firm. It was about the completion of the transaction for the sale of a property object, a beauty salon, which was registered in her name, but with a notarial permission to manage the property, granted to her husband a year ago. She signed those documents without reading the fine print she trusted. It turned out that a year ago she had given him the legal opportunity to act on her behalf within the property. The amount of the transaction was shocking. $12 million. More than she could have imagined. The salon, of course, was profitable, but even in her mind she did not rise to such estimates. The deal had been closed 3 days earlier. The funds were withdrawn to the account, and then broken down into transactions that she could not track. The legal support was perfect. Not a single loophole. The shock did not come immediately. At first there was misunderstanding. She reread the letter for a few minutes, looking at the numbers, names, signatures, dates. Then she opened the banking app. Horror. Accounts were empty. All of them, business and personal. Each one had a zero. All attempts to contact the bank gave the same result: access had been suspended by the owner's decision. The owner was now him. The next hours passed in silence. She didn't cry. She didn't scream, she didn't call. She just sat at the table in the salon, where her masters still worked, receiving clients, doing procedures. Her name was still on the sign, but nothing belonged to her anymore. She lost the business without selling it, without analyzing the offer, without making a decision. She had been robbed. Not by thieves on the street, but by someone she trusted unconditionally. When emotions began to break through, they didn't explode, they slowly seeped through like water through a crack. She began to sort out the transactions, and everything got even worse. The money did not go into a new investment project. It was not invested in stocks, real estate, or the stock market. It went to register a new business, which, according to official data, belonged to a young woman with whom her husband had begun dating a few months earlier. Everything was in her name. Everything. Equipment, rent, licenses, a company car. Even apartments purchased immediately after the transfers were registered in her name. The woman was 10 years younger, with no business experience, but with an energetic appearance and an empty history in the databases. Everything became clear. The man hadn't just betrayed her. He'd sold part of her life, transferred money, and started building a different reality with another woman. Different plans, a different story. And he didn't even hide it carefully. He didn't care. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an emotional decision. It was a cold, well-planned drain. The salon worked for another 2 hours. She sat there, not moving. She watched every movement. Listened to the voices of the customers, saw the light in the hallway light up, the monitor at the reception blink, the smell of a new batch of coffee. And she already knew, tomorrow other people would come here. Everything would change. The name on the sign would be removed. The team would disperse. The system she had built for years would disappear in a matter of days. But what hurt the most was that there was nothing left inside, not even anger. There was only silence. Emptiness, like after a fire. Her life was divided into before and after, not gradually, but with one sharp cut. What had been built had lost its support. What had been love had become betrayal. And now she had to do something instead of falling. In the morning she woke up with a heavy feeling of hopelessness, as if she had entered a fog from which it was impossible to get out. Everything that had seemed stable and strong suddenly collapsed under her feet. She remembered the millions that had once been in her hands and felt them dissolving into emptiness. The feeling of betrayal was not just painful, it burned inside, made her heart clench in her chest. But this very feeling awakened the desire not to just complain or cry, but to look for a way out. To do something. The first thing she did was contact a lawyer who had worked with her business for a long time. She received dry answers. The documents had been drawn up legally, all procedures had been carried out without violations. She signed the power of attorney herself, and now everything was legally in order. The lawyer suggested checking the possibility of canceling the deal, but the chances were minimal. There were no signs of fraud, no forgeries, everything was clean. She felt that this legal wall was not just stone. It was impenetrable. That same day, her phone exploded with calls and messages from friends, clients, and colleagues. The news of the salon being sold spread quickly. Everyone wondered how it had happened, why she didn't know who the owner was now, why there had been no warnings. She felt that she was becoming a victim not only of her husband's betrayal, but also of an unknown social struggle. Everyone looked at her, expecting an explanation, but she had only silenced. At the same time, problems began to arise in the salon's work. The new owners began to change management, introduce their own rules without consulting the team. Some employees received notices of dismissal. Clients began to feel inconvenienced because the service had changed. She knew that this was not happening for no reason. It was an attempt to quickly reorient the business to new goals. And there was no place for her in this. There was no relief in her personal life either. The man she once loved and trusted had stopped contacting her. His number was either switched off, or he simply did not answer. She began to understand that this was not just a betrayal of the business, it was a complete exclusion of her from his life. His new business, new projects, new woman, all this existed separately from her, like two parallel realities. She sat down to develop a plan. She could not afford to lose heart, because life presented new challenges. She began to collect information, track the movement of money, study the actions of the new owner. She found out that her husband's new business was not just a salon, it was a network built on quick and dubious deals, where her husband and his mistress controlled all the processes. She decided that she would not fight alone. She found old partners, those who had helped her before and whom she trusted. Together they began to plan countermeasures, how to regain her name, her business, and her own dignity. She felt that this was not just a matter of money, it was a fight for herself. The salon was no longer just a place of beauty and relaxation, it became a symbol of her struggle. Gradually, she began to gather a team that believed in her dream, in the fact that everything could be rebuilt from scratch. There were many doubts, many failures, but she did not give up. She learned to keep the blow, learn from mistakes and keep moving, and even in the darkest moments, she did not lose hope. She was supported by loved ones, people who knew how difficult it was to start over. She began to understand that this blow was not the end, but the beginning of something new. She firmly decided that one day she would prove to everyone that her strength was not in money or business, but in the ability to be reborn. After the blow to her business, life seemed to turn upside down. She found herself at a crossroads where every choice could be decisive. She started with the simplest thing, restoring contacts with suppliers and customers. Despite the change of ownership, many of them remained loyal to her, remembering the quality and service that she had built over the years. This support was the first ray of light in the darkness. In parallel, she studied the financial documents that she managed to obtain through lawyers and acquaintances. There was a lot of uncleanness in them, but nothing direct. The traces of spending money on her husband's mistress's new business were confused and disguised. It seemed that every step revealed new secrets. But she could not stop. She began to look for opportunities to open her own salon again. This required funds, partners, and a team. Previously, she worked alone, trusting only herself, but now she had to accept help. She met with people who were ready to invest and agreed on terms that gave her control over the business. At the same time, she began to change her attitude towards her ex-husband. She no longer wanted to live in the shadow of betrayal and lies. It was not just about money, it was a story about loss of trust and finding herself. She realized that she had to move on, even if the past was pulling her back. The new format salon began to accept its first clients. She made every effort to make it modern, comfortable, and attractive. Every detail, from the interior to the selection of cosmetics, was thought out. She tried to create not just a place of beauty, but a space where people could relax their soul and body while working. She noticed how former clients gradually returned. They shared stories about the changes that had occurred in her salon, about the support and warmth they felt here. This gave her strength and inspiration. She realized that the most valuable thing was people, not money. However, the problems did not recede. Her husband and his mistress continued to look for ways to destroy her plans. They tried to influence suppliers, interfered with advertising campaigns, started rumors. It was clear that this struggle would be long and difficult. She was not afraid of obstacles. Each attack became a lesson and a challenge for her. She learned to hold her blow, see the enemy's weaknesses and act strategically. She did not allow herself to doubt. Her goal was clear and unchanging. From time to time, she remembered how it all began. The memory of how her husband secretly sold the salon hurt but did not paralyze. She understood that the most important thing was not betrayal, but the strength to get up and start again. She found this strength in herself, in the support of loved ones, and in her faith in the future. Gradually, she began to feel that life was returning to a new, better path. Her salon became a symbol of rebirth, and she was an example of invincibility. And although the struggle continued, she already knew that she was not alone and that victory was a matter of time. Time did not stop, and she had no right to pause. Several months had already passed since her husband sold the salon for $12 million and spent the money on his mistress's business. She was not just recovering. She was transforming. Every day her mind became sharper and her will stronger. This was not just a fight for the business, it was a fight for herself, for her life, which was broken by someone else. She analyzed all the mistakes she had made before. When she trusted her husband, she did not think about what he could betray. Now she knew, trust is a luxury that can be allowed only to those who deserve it. She set new rules, new boundaries. Her salon was no longer just a place where hair was done and massages were done. It became a space of strength, confidence, and new opportunities. She changed the team, brought in new people who shared her values and saw a common goal. Former subordinates who could not stand the pressure or were afraid of the consequences gave way to professionals. She built not just a business, but a team ready for challenges and capable of creating miracles. Each employee was not just a performer, but a partner in the cause. The new strategy she developed seemed risky at first. It was always a challenge to abandon traditional methods and introduce innovations. But the market was changing, and she wanted to be ahead. She studied modern technologies, invited consultants, and attended seminars. Her salon began to offer unique services that were previously unavailable in the region. The advertising campaign she launched was powerful. She didn't just sell beauty, but offered a sense of confidence and self-care. Social media, bloggers, and reviews from satisfied customers all worked to create a new image. She took care of every little aspect, from the atmosphere in the salon to the quality of the products. At the same time, she didn't forget about the legal side. She hired the best lawyers who fought for justice. The case was complicated because her husband had managed to withdraw part of the money and cover his tracks. But she didn't give up and fought to the end. Every meeting, every document became a step towards victory. Life became more interesting and eventful. She found new hobbies that helped her to distract herself and recharge her energy. Sports, traveling, reading, all this became part of her daily rhythm. She felt that she was alive again, that her soul was filled with light and strength. Every morning began with the realization she herself was the creator of her own happiness. At the same time, the past reminded of itself. Her husband and lover did not give up, made attempts to regain control, to sow doubts among her partners and friends. They spread rumors, tried to bribe former employees, tried to ruin her reputation. But now she was ready for such blows. She knew how to defend herself and knew how to act. Her business began to expand. She opened 2 more salons in different areas, attracted investors who believed in her ideas. She invested in training the team, supported young professionals, and created new jobs. Her salon became not only a profitable enterprise, but also a social project. Most importantly, she believed in people again. She found true friends who supported her not for profit, but from the bottom of her heart. She discovered that trust is not a weakness, but a strength, if given carefully and wisely. She learned to let go of resentment and focus on what makes her happy. Gradually, her story became known. People were amazed at her endurance and strength. She spoke at conferences, shared her experience, and inspired other women not to give up in the face of difficulties. Her story became a symbol of victory over betrayal and defeat. She proved that even after the greatest losses, You can rise and move on, and although the path was difficult, she knew that even more successes and achievements lay ahead. Her husband and lover were in the past, and she was in the future. She became an example of how a strong woman can change her life if she is not afraid to go forward and fight for her happiness. She could not believe that everything would end like this. The salon, which was once her pride and dream, disappeared from her life in 1 minute. The man she considered a partner stole not only the business, but also her trust. Having spent $12 million, he left nothing but emptiness. It turned out that the money went to his lover, a new project that existed only in his fantasies. She found out about this not from him, but by chance, from a call that turned her world upside down. No more plans, no more hopes. Only the cold fact that the property was sold without her knowledge, without her consent, and now everything is in the past. She destroyed all the connections that reminded her of betrayal. She threw away the photos, deleted the messages, blocked the contacts. No memories, no regrets. Only a cold calculation and a plan for the future. The world was no longer the same, but she was not going to give up. The remnants of strength and faith in herself were what helped her move forward even when it seemed that there was no way out. She found the strength to rise. Under the pressure of losses, a new impetus arose to start from scratch. Instead of losses, new opportunities. Even with empty hands, she saw a path to recovery. She refused to be a victim, deciding to become the creator of her own destiny. Gradually, she began to collect the pieces of a broken life, building a new reality. The past remained in the shadows, but not in oblivion. She learned to look forward, not looking back. Every day brought new challenges, but also new victories. Her husband's betrayal opened her eyes to the true value, independence, and inner strength. She realized that true wealth is not money, but the will to be yourself. The ex-husband found himself at a crossroads. His dreams were shattered, and his lover disappeared from his life as suddenly as she had appeared. He was left alone with the wasteland he had created with his own hands. No money, no support, no future. Everything that was once his had disappeared, leaving only a bitter residue. She looked up at the sky, feeling a lightness she had never known before. Betrayal had cleared the way to freedom, given her the opportunity to start over. She did not seek revenge, she did not hold grudges. Her victory was quiet but undeniable. Her life was hers again, and that was the main thing. Now everything depended on her. She could choose to live in the past or to build a future. She chose the second. She chose herself. This choice became her strength and an excuse to move on. Pain and betrayal did not break her, but made her stronger. She knew that there were still many battles ahead, but she was ready to accept them with her head held high. The world is changing, and she has changed with it. The past is a page that can be turned over. Ahead is a blank slate and new opportunities. And although she had lost a lot, she now knew the main thing: true value is in the ability to recover and not give up. And this was her true wealth. Life went on, but nothing was the same as before. She felt that now her every step mattered, and that everything that would happen next depended on her. Instead of despair, there was determination. Instead of regret, there was a plan of action. She began to look at the world differently, to notice the little things that had previously seemed insignificant. She found new ways to move forward. The support of friends and those who remained nearby helped her not to get lost in the darkness. But most importantly, she learned to trust herself, her decisions, and her willpower. This was a new life that she was building on her own, step by step. At the same time, the man who had destroyed her world was trying to save what was left of his plans. His new business, built on deception, began to collapse over time. Without support and without money, he lost confidence in the future. Every day, his former lover, who had once been his hope, disappeared, leaving only emptiness. He became a hostage to his own mistakes and lies. Sometimes it seemed that everything was flying into the abyss, and no one could save him. She didn't stop rebuilding the beauty salon from scratch. She invested not only money but also her soul in it. New clients, new services, new ideas. Every small success became proof that she hadn't broken down, that her dream was alive and breathing. She learned not to be afraid to start again. Not to be afraid to take risks and go towards her goal, no matter what. Her strength was in the ability to let go of the past and build a future. One day she received an unexpected offer. An investor who had once supported her project offered help to expand the business. It was a chance she could have missed, but this time she knew she would take it with caution. Understanding that success doesn't come instantly, but is the result of work and patience, became her new credo. She was ready for any challenges, because now she knew the price of every step. The man was left alone with his problems. His attempts to restore what was lost looked pathetic and hopeless. Without money, without support, without respect and trust, he lost not only his business, but also respect for himself. The world he wanted to conquer turned against him. And each new day became a reminder of the mistakes he had made. She looked ahead, feeling that every day was a chance to change her life. She did not forget about the pain, but did not let it control her. She chose strength, chose movement, chose life. And this choice made her a true winner. Without fuss, without show, only the silence in which she found herself again.